The conversations and information provided are not intended to substitute professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment.
The opinions expressed are the speaker's own and do not reflect the view of Humana Military or the Department of Defense.
Welcome to the Operation Within podcast, where we talk about health and a deeper sense of well-being.
Operation Within is a collective initiative to optimize holistic health matters and nourish within community, within self, and within family.
Thank you for joining the conversation on Operation Within podcast. We are your hosts, Mel
and Marty, and our conversations are real, they're raw, and reflective.
These conversations offer meaningful dialogue on experiences within the military community, oriented to empower and strengthen health and vitality in our communities who serve.
We want to give a special thanks to Humana Military and our partners who have brought Operation Within to life.
Let's dive in.
All right, so welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another Operation Within podcast. I'm Marty. I'm back here with my wingman, my teammate, my soulmate, Mel. How you doing today, Mel?
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Marty. And we have a special guest who is the foundation, ultimately, of how Operation came together, and that is the glue of everything unfolding. Maria Gonzales is here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Glad that we're really happy that you're here, Maria. And I know Mel and I, we've spoken after several of our conversations, and we would be remiss if we didn't have a conversation with really the brains behind this entire initiative, right? Operation Within. And I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. But I do want to share something before we start. So in 2019, I actually met Maria at a coffee shop. Mel, how did you meet Maria?
At a coffee shop.
So we have that in common, Maria. So what is it about coffee shops, and what is it? How did you find us at these coffee shops?
Yeah, good question. So in 2019, I was on a quest. Our department within Humana Military, Military Health and Resilience, had just launched. I was going out into the community, and I was trying to meet people and introduce myself and kind of figure out who was doing what in our community to serve our military. And so, I heard about this organization, Team RWB. I reached out, I think, to someone, and they put me in contact with you. And similarly, actually, I don't remember how I came in contact with you, Mel, but
you called me, and then I'm a coffee shop person too. So when it was like, let's meet for coffee, it was fate.
Right. It totally was.
It was. And I remember I had just, I was a member of Team Red, White, and Blue San Antonio. I've been a member since 2017. But at that time, and I have moved up as a volunteer leader, and I've taken on different roles. Well, at the end of 2019 and into 2020, I had taken on the first ever, the Texas state coordinator. They had created a new volunteer position, and there were 3 of us for Texas because there's a lot of chapters in Texas. And I was kind of stepping into my role, and that's how we met. And we were talking about how can Team Red, White, and Blue and Humana Military, how can we connect, right, to just, to see where we align. And that was really the genesis of the conversation, our relationship. And then COVID happened, of course, right? Yeah. So a lot of that initial conversation and some of those plans just kind of fell by the wayside. But nonetheless, we've pressed forward, and we've had Maria and her family, right? Maria and the family, Gabe and the kids. It's a total package. So anytime they come out to our events, they've done one of the several suicide awareness and prevention walks. We've talked about that in a previous episode. They've come out to, Maria's been out to one of our national events. In 2020, we hosted our last Run as One, and that is a big event. That was, it's a combination of multiple VSOs that come together. Team Rubicon, another veteran service organization, they would host that event, but that event has kind of gone by the wayside now. And that's where we met. We brought you in. It was a Travis Manion Foundation. It was us. It was Wear Blue, Run to Remember, and Humana Military. And here we were, again, just trying to navigate COVID. And Mel, I'll tell you what, it's been very, very challenging, but we talked about adaptability in our previous conversation, and we've been able to kind of maintain or really just adjust the way we execute all these events. And I imagine you do the same with your yoga practice.
Absolutely. You know, being a business owner during the pandemic and even today, navigating the things that we're navigating, it's really an invitation for creativity and innovation. You know, we're so used to the systems and the same way we have done everything. And I think part of what was so confronting about the pandemic is that it asked us to really look at what we're doing right and what we're not doing what we're doing that's not in alignment, and make those changes. So it's been really powerful. And, you know, when Maria and I met, it was in 2019 also, one thing I really appreciated was just the, you know, from a market research and just like understanding, she really was interested in the person connection piece of how our military spouses being supported in this community, and specifically with my work with Mel Mind Body and with Mel Marie Yoga, what we're doing in the community with the yoga classes and the foundations course. You know, it was such a fruitful conversation that, you know, it's like, yes, like for military spouses to be seen and heard in such meaningful ways, and for more of the community to recognize that and participate in it, it was really exciting to get to meet Maria, and here we are.
Yeah, and so going back to you two, I identified early on like there was a passion in the work that you do. And so even though 2020 went kind of quiet with COVID and we weren't able to execute on those projects that we had planned, I always kept you both in the back of my mind. And so when the opportunity did arise to continue to do this meaningful work in San Antonio, you guys were right, like top of mind, you know, to come forward and do this work. And so, you know, part of my outreach in the beginning and why we even connected at all was because I was really trying to understand which projects and programs and were already in place in San Antonio. You know, we are Military City, USA, and there is a lot of great work that's happening here, but I sometimes feel like it's happening in siloed excellence, right? So how can we come together collectively to make a greater impact? That's really what it was all about. And so fast forward, and you know, we developed this team, this project team that y'all are, and other strong organizations in San Antonio, and you know, built out this collective impact project. And this podcast is like the brainchild, what I would consider, you know, the fruit, the magic fruit that is going to really bring that innovation where it didn't exist before, and where we can teach and educate and inspire and connect. You know, there's that connection again that is so prevalent in this military community. It's been researched, it's been documented. Like there is a loneliness that's felt a lot by the service member, by the spouse, and it really affects the family unit. So if we can be innovative in our approach, I really think that this is an opportunity to connect. And it's not location specific, right? The podcast can be heard anywhere, all over the world. So, you know, hats off to you guys, because you're doing all the hard work.
No, this is great. And I've actually, and Mel and I spoke about this, but some friends, folks that from Alabama and family members, you know, from South Texas, folks that even one of my good friends from Houston just sends me private messages like, wow, this is amazing. I'm not military. I didn't think I was going to connect with this conversation, but I really enjoy listening to both of you and just really talking about how we can overcome some of those challenges. So I really want to get to, again, before we get to really the why and the genesis of Operation Within the podcast and some of the other things that are associated with the podcast, right? Because this is one prong of the overall effort. So tell us, Maria, a little bit about your affiliation with the military. I know Gabe, I believe he's a soldier, correct? A former soldier.
Airman. An
airman, mm-hmm. Right? So tell us about your affiliation with the military. Tell us about your family, and just talk about what kind of assignments, where you guys been stationed at? What you guys have been doing?
Yeah, so my husband Gabe is an Air Force veteran. He actually served his time before we met. So having said that, when I did meet him, he is very passionate about the time that he served. And in addition, it came with some complications. So he's a disabled veteran. And I've been with him while he tried to navigate the system and really work through some of those issues that can sometimes be difficult. Physical issues, I think sometimes emotional issues. And I could never connect with him before I came into this role. Not that I didn't support him, but it was different. It was like maybe like a superficial empathy. It wasn't deep, and it's because I wasn't in it. I wasn't in it. I didn't serve that time with him during his period of service, and so I was just hearing like secondhand stories. So when this position became available, I read the job description and all that it entailed, and I thought, like, I have to do this. There is no way that I cannot at least put my name in the hat for this role, like to be able to connect with all these organizations. That's part of the role, to meet people, to talk to people, to hear their stories. And then like a byproduct of my work is that I grew. I felt like I was able to really connect with him differently. All of those stories that he was telling me, like, I could feel them deeper. I was hearing them from other people who had experienced the same. And it was just so amazing to be able to connect with you, Marty, and then introduce him to Team RWB, where he had a connection with you. And that's just one example. But, in the podcast as well, having him listen to how it's going, he is connecting and I can hear it. And that's just a firsthand experience of how it works. So I'm just really grateful for the opportunity that I've had in my role to connect with so many people who are doing this work and that have a passion for it. And I have a newfound deep respect for the work that you guys do, and I'm in it. I'm in it now, so I feel it, and now that passion is mine.
That's so beautiful. I think too is like when we start to, because sometimes it's almost like we don't feel the right. It's like, well, I wasn't there, or I don't have that experience, so I can't relate. But then when we start to find the language and have conversations with people that it might not be your partner, but it's just people in the community that you built these safe relationships with, where you can have those conversations, and then it cultivates more connection. Because I mean, even as a military spouse, there's things that your partner goes through that, I wasn't on his deployment, or I wasn't in the field and dealing with that, or, whatever it is. But being part of that community and having those conversations, I will say, especially being a volunteer on Fort Sam and my experience at Fort Bragg, just working directly with military personnel has given me a whole new landscape of empathy and understanding to some of the different things that my husband has experienced or stories I've heard that allow me to relate to it. So I think that what you share is so relatable, whether you are, a military spouse in service, or even if you're listening to this, maybe you're a parent and it's your kid who's in the military. So
that's a great point. You make a great point where I don't think we really touched on, if you have a parent in the household. And this is, in my experience as a military member, we actually have families. They have the blended families. You have the extended family all living together, and you're not only navigating the challenges of the spouse and the military member. Now you add the kids. Now you add another parent. Now you add, you talked about maybe an injury or something that the member is going through, and it starts compounding the stressors. So, and again, so as you joined Gabe and you became more connected, right, with the military and his experiences. So, and I know you're also going to school, right? I know that was when we first met. You talked about, you're really driven. You've got a lot on your plate, both you and Mel. I don't know if both of you sleep at all, but both of you have a lot going on. But talk about that. Talk about how do you balance, your professional, your day to day, your job, your passion, right? Going to school, your family. How do you navigate all that? How do you handle that stress?
Well, first off, I have a great support system, right? So that's a key piece. There is no way I could do this all on my own. It truly takes, a strong partner and friend to even allow me the time to devote to my studies, as it were, when I was getting my master's degree. And then I did start, my doctoral degree, but I really put it on pause because of COVID and all that jazz. So, but it's tough. It's definitely tough at times. And, but you're right. I am driven, and I feel like with a strong support system and resources, that it's kind of just small bites, right? Every single day is just one day closer to achieving my goal. So it requires a lot of balance. It requires a lot of patience, fortitude, I guess. I also have a great employer that, supports me and encourages. It's very, I love the work that I do, but I also love the team that I'm on. And so it helps to have all of that support around me. And I feel very fortunate to have that where I know some don't, and which is another driver in me to encourage and empower those who might be, kind of at the cusp of a decision. And maybe we're providing the resource or the education or we are providing the, just the initiative within them to continue on, because it certainly can be done, but it's not easy.
Yeah, it's like having the community, and even, it's like for me as a woman, being around inspiring women, that has been a big piece of what motivates me, and also gives me that safe container if I feel, that's really a big piece of my own personal support, and obviously having a partner who gets it. And it's not always, because sometimes it can feel really selfish because, Melissa's on her thing again, or it's like you have another thing. And so it's working collaboratively, right? So it's beautiful.
I often think back, we talked the last conversation we had, we were talking about our families. We were talking about the kids and just giving the bath. I almost drowned my daughter, giving her a bath. We were overseas, no family. And, but it's, when you do have these shared experiences, and it is a different culture. It's a different language, that it's a different little bubble that the military families live in. And the spouse is, whether, the husband or the wife, they are that frontline person that gets to see all of those things within that military member that they're struggling with, all of those joys in their life, their goals, their passions. Like, hey, I really want to promote. I really want this job. Man, I got passed over again. This is horrible. I used to run, a 10-minute mile and a half, and used to crank out all of these, pull-ups, and now I can barely walk. And you really get to know the military member better than any physician, or better than any, any counselor, because you kind of feel it, you see it day in and day out. So I know for me, having that at home, even my kids already knew. They knew if dad was off or if dad was on. They knew if dad was going through some tough times. They knew if dad was leaving. They kind of knew, even the dogs, even the pets sense when things are going wrong. So just having that military member there, or that spouse that's supportive, and you also want that reciprocated. You want that military member to support the spouse, whether it's, for a professional goal or education, or, hey, I want a career as well. And I see a lot of that in the military, where I wasn't recognizing that until later in my career, because early on it was about, go ahead and have the baby. Let's go. Let's PCS. And I'm ready because I got to go back to work, and let me know that we're good and our finances are good. I mean, I know from a military perspective, that was my mindset. School, are the kids going to be okay? Because I got to go to work, or I've got to go TDY. So sometimes we don't really connect the dots, and it takes a little bit, of coaxing to realize, like, hey, your other half also has goals, and they have things that they're trying to achieve. So I appreciate that you're both are sharing. Well, I'm just inspired by how much both of you are able to accomplish again in a day, and then your backgrounds, because I'm thinking, wow, but when I was 30, when I was 25, I was just trying to survive and exist, and you guys are already, just miles and miles ahead. And again, we're not competing, but it's just one of those things like, man, you can do it. Like you can do anything you put your mind to it. So.
It's true. The one thing though, like that I want to highlight what you said was self-reflection is such an important piece, because so much of life, it's fast. Life is fast. So we can get lost in the day-to-day, and oftentimes our interests or desires and goals go to the wayside because it's just not convenient or right timing. But if you just slowing time down just by pausing and maybe journaling or having a conversation with someone about these things that are important to you, because when you self-reflect and get clear, then the conversations come easier with your partner, because, you know, your partner is just doing what they need to do and you're just doing what you need to do. And sometimes we just assume things about our partners, and then we become resentful if we're not articulating that. So the time for self-reflection is so powerful, and it starts with you.
Yeah, and it's hard. That requires like a deep level of communication, and some people are just not comfortable having those crucial conversations, but it's so important to have that open line of communication with your spouse, right? I mean, some of these conversations are not easy, and they can feel uncomfortable, and they can make you feel vulnerable. But again, they are important. And much to what you said about nobody knows your spouse better than you do. Like, who else can you entrust with your, you know, your secrets, your goals, your desires? Then, you know, so I would just highly recommend using your spouse as a resource right there. They're your front line, your best friend. They can be, you know, so.
And it's important as well. I know we talked about, you mentioned your husband is a disabled vet. And I know in some cases when it's very severe, and maybe the member is in a wheelchair, right? Or they need a lot of support. And we have some members in Team Red, White, and Blue, and they come out to our events, and they are full-time providers. They are taking care of that military member. And when they come out to our events, or they go and participate in a run or a ruck, that is their release, and that is their effort is saying that it doesn't mean they don't want to be at home or helping, but they also need a release. You know, they need some time away, and whether through exercise, again, you talked about journaling, yoga, right? I know I had the most amazing yoga experience down in the Rio Grande Valley. And we can have that conversation, but it was awesome. And I stand by it. That yoga is a fantastic practice. I'm not flexible, but I tried and I did my best. So.
It's about range of motion and connecting with it, not performance. So no, it's true. I mean, connecting with these things for ourselves, because you can only give from a place of have. And what ends up happening if we're constantly just pouring out into other people, this is where illness comes from. And then, like I said, that resentment. So how can we balance, and through our conduct of leaning into the things that are also nourishing for us, that's going to show and inspire other people in your personal life to do the same for themselves. And then it allows you to show up more deeper or with more fullness with your loved one or as a caregiver. So it really... You know, I mean, I think part of the mission, one of the things with Operation Within is to, you know, yes, we're trying to cultivate within community, but the community within you, which is your inner dialogue, it's your mental wellness, it's the things that you're passionate about. If you don't foster that and nourish that, you know, so often we just feel dull, and then we end up being sick and angry, right? It's like, you know, we have to water our own grass.
I love that. Water our own grass. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to add that to our list of quotes that...
My husband said to me the other day, I know this is like a meme or a joke, but it's like they say that the grass is greener on the other side, but you still have to water that grass too, or something like that.
That's much nicer than what my husband says about the grass on the other side.
Yes, I think I thought you were going to go with that one.
I was like, yeah.
But no, it's again a connection. You're talking about wellness, and I mean all of these things, nourishment, right? You're talking about all these things. This is everything that this is everything we want to talk about with Operation Within. So Maria, again, we know your affiliation with the military. Again, but what besides, you know, obviously you want to support your husband, but why are you so drawn, other than, you know, supporting your husband? What draws you to the military community? And then what was that that spark that made you say, you know what, we need to collaborate with VSOs and launch this operation within?
Yeah, so my background is in public health and community health. So I would say, first and foremost, I'm an advocate, right? And there is something going on in this military community whereby, they are feeling, data shows and they're reporting high levels of loneliness and feelings of social isolation. In addition, a lot of the military younger enlisted families are food insecure. I mean, you just have to look around to know that that the data shows food insecurity, which skyrocketed during COVID. And also there's a really high prevalence of tobacco and alcohol use in the military. And I think it ties back to military culture. So my role as the local population health leader was to go out and identify, these VSOs and these organizations that were already working to address these issues, whether it be the San Antonio Food Bank with food insecurity, or whether it's Team Red, White, and Blue and, creating opportunities for connection, which in turn reduces feelings of loneliness, or whether it's, teaching, Mel, teaching yoga as a resource for connection and health. So, the idea then is that if we all work together, we can reduce these incidents of loneliness. We can empower and teach and enrich those who are food insecure. And then collectively, the military community will report better health outcomes, right? We want a strong and resilient military force, right, ultimately. And so that's the idea behind it. But admittedly, I did not know about these issues as a civilian myself. I didn't understand, or I couldn't appreciate how a military family could be food insecure, and I was just really ignorant to the whole thing before I started this work. And I did a lot of research. Part of my role is research, and part of my undergraduate was research. And the numbers are staggering. The data speaks for itself. And so I can really get behind a cause where there are health disparities in this population. I see myself as serving the deserving, right? So, and we have that kind of plastered all over our, Humana Military t-shirts. And it's really something that I am now very passionate about. And I want to advocate on behalf of the military community so others know that these issues exist.
Well, and with these issues too, a lot of them, they're quiet, right? It's like we're uncomfortable to talk about them, or it's like, here's a pamphlet and go see this person and let's just take care of it. When the reality is that the markers for these are so much deeper than just, we're food insecure because this just happened. No, there's a lot of things underlaying, so absolutely the importance of how can we normalize the conversation and help people feel safer to engage in it and then apply it. And I think too, with Operation Within, with, the ways that we're doing this, it allows people to have that autonomy. And if they want to, acknowledge or like show up in, that I'm working through alcoholism, or that they don't have to, like, just by listening to this, you don't have to tell anybody, right? So you really get this freedom of how you want to engage and participate in your wellness.
And I think Marty said it before, but he said, like, these conversations are already happening. People are talking about this, but now we're just taking it to like a broader audience. So if it doesn't have to be just on a walk, with a buddy, like on a one-off. Now, like you said, normalizing it. Like, there's a lot of people who are going through this same thing. You are not alone, and there are resources available to support you.
We talked about in our conversations about how it is, again, we're a low context society. Are you good? Yes, I'm good. And I don't want to open up and really just share what is going on in my life, because I don't, right? It's private and it doesn't matter to anybody. But I am struggling, and COVID or the pandemic or when we were in quarantine through 2020, that was I know for me, I mentioned to Mel the other day, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Not because I was at home by myself. I was at home by myself, and my kids left. They had already moved on, so it was empty nesting, and then add a pandemic on top of it, and now I'm not at work, right? And I'm thinking, man, that was hard. And I work out and I go for long rucks and I do all those things. It's really, really challenging. So, but I never told anybody because I didn't. It was none of their business. But in confidence, slowly, you know, as you realize, like, man, this is really challenging. And then, you know, we go to a suicide awareness walk, or we go kayaking, you know, because we kayak with Team Red, White, and Blue, right? So it's awesome to get out in the water and you just meet up with another military member or just someone who's at our event, and you just start talking, and lo and behold, hey man, the pandemic or being quarantined, that was like the hardest thing I've ever done. Oh my gosh, me too. And now you just open that dialogue and you're like, man, you get it. Like, you totally get it. I'm an empty nester. Me too. Oh my gosh. So you're going through that empty nesting. So again, we hesitate having these conversations. One, because, well, you have to have a relationship first, right? You can't just open up and talk to just random people. I mean, we are here on this podcast, right? So, but you're not random. We love you. You're the audience, and we want to share this stuff with you. But it is hard to open up, and it's because it makes us vulnerable, I believe. And being vulnerable is being uncomfortable, and uncomfortable is we don't want to be uncomfortable. We want to be in control. We want everything to be perfect. But again, that's normally not how the world works, right? It's always chaotic.
Well, it goes into that shared vulnerability, right? There's a difference of being just vulnerable versus having shared vulnerability where we all lay down the armor and we all sit in the human with one another. And I think too, this is why events, or, you know, it's like, versus the concept of here's another boilerplate program, here's another thing just to give to you. Let's experience something together. Let's do something experiential that provokes self-inquiry and, you know, lightheartedness and that shared vulnerability, which is a huge way of how we build trust with community.
Yeah, it's I enjoy. I've had some of the best conversations when I least expected it. You know, and sometimes it's actually here before we get on the microphones and start talking, or even afterwards. We have some really powerful conversations. But so Maria, so here we are, right? We are the podcast and our conversations. This is just one component of the overall program and your vision. So what else can our listeners, what else can we gain, you know, by taking part in this Operation Within?
Yeah, so Operation Within was actually built off of the ideas of addressing three main components, which would be mindfulness, mindset, and connection. And so the model was actually developed with the podcast in mind to, you know, to help with connection. But there are other things too. There's a mindfulness book. So that will be something tangible that can, you know, be given out. It'll have like self-assessment quizzes and
articles, lots like different self-reflection techniques. And there's going to be articles in there that inform, and it's cultivated by several people have contributed to this. So it's going to be something that's very multifaceted, even stuff for your kids.
Right, exactly. And then, you know, the idea then is that we give them out at events when and if we're able to go back to in person, but also that we have like digital copies of the book available so that it serves as a resource that can, you know, go with you wherever you are. And then, you know, we want to serve. So I know that volunteer, you guys talked about volunteerism and the benefits of volunteering and how that affects you or, you know, impacts your health positively. And so we want to volunteer at food distributions. We're working with local partners to develop a military community food distribution to serve, and then bringing in volunteers from the community, perhaps military spouses if they're interested, definitely Team RWB and you know, even maybe Humana associates who would like to go out and give back to the community, but really just looping them in, all again with the intention to offer connection and bring togetherness, and with the purpose and intention of addressing the social isolation, but then also, as you know, also feeding, right? Providing the food service and the food benefit that's so desperately needed. So we really gave a lot of thought to Operation Within, and wanted to be innovative in our approach, instead of, like Mel said, just something that's superficial, like just a resource, take this and do, but let's experience and let's, get well together, kind of.
I've been the guy that has picked up a pamphlet at an office or somewhere, and it's like cool graphics, and it's there's nothing. I don't really know what to do with it. It's like, oh, there's a cool website, and I think you're right. I mean, it's like I really want to like talk to somebody. I can figure stuff out, but explain it to me. How does this work, or how do I get involved? And I think a lot of it is very passive, like, oh, here you go, welcome, thank you for 24 years in the military. Good luck. Welcome to San Antonio. You're like, that's it. Like, there's got to be more. So I think this is definitely going to give of military families a lot more, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just think that there's so much depth. I mean, if you just think about the conversations that you guys are having and the audience that you're reaching, and I can speak on behalf of myself personally, not having really any firsthand military experience, like it's applicable. The topics and discussions, they really are applicable. And other people will hear that and see themselves in the conversation and how it applies. So it's just great work that's happening all the way around. And I believe in the program, and I believe that, we're all doing great things.
The vision too of, how it all fits together is something that is probably the most powerful for me as a volunteer in this experience, is where, our participants or the individuals coming to the food distributions, waiting in their cars, getting to listen to the podcast and, receiving the food and getting, just welcoming, non-judgment, lighthearted connection while they're waiting and while they're going through the process. And then also receiving, this book that has this, these beautiful gems that they can take home to continue to nourish themselves. So you're not just being nourished by the food, but you're being nourished by emotional and mental hygiene as well.
Yes.
That's one aspect, I think, the Alamo City, that San Antonio, and we talked about this with Mr. Eric Cooper from the food bank, during COVID or in 2020, as we were trying to care for families and communities, the food bank and organizations like Soldiers Angels and a number of other organizations that hosted these food drives, right? And they were handing out these mobile food distributions. Man, we shined. I know as the Alamo City, San Antonio, that was, I mean, we can really hang our hat on that. We have partners, with HEB. You see HEB donate, because we've been out there on the line with Soldiers Angels, and we've been volunteering. Team Red, White, and Blue. Every third Thursday of the month, we're out there. It's hot. You're sweating. You're wearing a mask, and we have to do what we need to do. But at the end of the day, is we are helping and we're giving back. And I'll tell you that some of our volunteers are the most hardened military members. They've had some tough experiences, and they're dealing, with whatever stressors are going on in their life. But they are like the most alive when they're out there helping and giving back. Like you can just see that smile on their face because they feel like they have that renewed purpose and they're out there helping their fellow communities. So.
Well, volunteerism, there's actually some data around the health benefits. And part of that is when we serve, oxytocin's released. We're doing neural coupling with connection. And, there's so many pieces that come to this that help with healing and help cultivate resilience. And so, if you're considering volunteering, one of the big things is go where you feel passionate and what interests you. And you never know who you're going to meet, and you never know like those small moments that will stick with you forever that happen in those experiences.
Yeah, and I can relate to what you said, Marty, is at the food bank, working the line or working in the warehouse. Both experiences that I do, and I take my kids with me so they can feel it too, but it's humbling and gratifying, and that is where my heart takes me because I know the need exists, and hot as it is, sweaty as we are, I keep going back, and I know that's something that you're passionate about too. But yeah, there's no equivalent.
There is no equivalent, and if we could take it all the way back to 2019, we talked about the coffee shop and volunteering with Team Red, White, and Blue, and so I mean for the audience that's listening, Mel and I, we are completely doing this as volunteers. This is we are giving back. I mean, it's continuing our service to the Alamo City. And I think we can just share our experiences, and I think this is really good. We're 2 decades apart, but we're connected. Mel, we met on the first episode, and I feel like we've known each other, for a very long time. And again, I would have never gotten those opportunities had it not been by volunteering with Team Red, White, and Blue or being a part of this organization. And likewise, Maria, we were at this coffee shop, and I'm thinking, okay, here I am as the volunteer state coordinator, and I'm just trying to share, the mission of Team Red, White, and Blue, what we do, what are some of the events, and how can we best align with Humana Military. And man, it was automatic. It's like, wow, we're aligned already, and that this partnership grew from that one conversation to Humana Military really supporting Team Red, White, and Blue. Last October, we celebrated our 10th anniversary. So Humana Military stepped in, and they're like, hey, we want to support you guys. And they were very kind and really just saying, hey, we want to continue this relationship with Team Red, White, and Blue. So Maria, I got to tell you that for me, as someone who's never been, behind the microphone or ever done anything like this, I never expected that conversation would lead us here to the three of us having this conversation about Operation Within. And I'm just so honored to be a part of this. And it's like, so what's next? Like, where do we go from here? Because I feel like I'm on cloud 9 right now. And even though some of our stories are a little crazy and maybe a little scary, right? But I feel like this is really a culmination. Like, I feel like this is something positive, and I'm just honored to be a part of it.
I would say one of the first things is continuous outreach to connect with people. One of the reasons I think with volunteerism that people choose to volunteer in certain ways is because they may have experienced being on the other end. I know we've had conversations on food insecurity on the podcast, but a lot of spouses or family members are in the situations, but they don't recognize they're in that situation, or they feel like they're taking from someone else by getting the help they need. And so one is these conversations of outreach to help people feel safe and supported, and the courage to come and get help. We're here to help you. I've been on the other end of different things, and I know all of us sitting here have had, lows and experiences. And part of the way this parallel process of healing and support works is that, we give back in ways that we've been supported. So that outreach of, whether you're a civilian or you're in the military or you're retired, that there is room at the table for you to join in this conversation, to come volunteer, to support the events, and just hit share when you listen to an episode. It's really simple. So we can begin to turn this into a movement more than anything.
A movement. I like that. I think, well, it's already a movement.
Yeah.
I think this is going to spark those open dialogues and conversations where we once just shared them in private, and now I think folks are going to be open. Like, you know what, I can totally relate to that. Let's, hey, Bob or John or Mary, this is important. Are you doing okay? I mean, how can I help? How can we help? So, but anyway, so Maria, so what's next? So we're here. Right, we're here. We've got this. We're on the. It's really just the beginning, right? Because this is the beginning of a larger conversation. But so, what do you say to a spouse or that's listening, who is going to school, who is looking for to develop themselves professionally, who is managing a family, and also married to a military member? What kind of advice do you have for those families out there, and what can they learn, from this experience?
So, from my own perspective, in that situation, I think it's just really important to take a moment to yourself. Sometimes things can get overwhelming, and I once heard a story about if you imagine your life is like a glass vase, and each thing that you take on, whether it's having a child or 4 children or getting married having a full-time job, going back to school, whatever it is, each of those things is like a stone, and you only have the capacity for so much, and one more stone and you will break. So, make those decisions carefully, but take time for yourself, because it can definitely get overwhelming. Self-care is key. And I don't think sometimes, like Mel said, you're through the motions, and it's day by day, and you have to take care of your kids, and you have to be a good wife, but you also have to go to work, and, you have to do your schoolwork, and if you choose to do so, and if you choose that route. And so don't take on more than you can physically accommodate, because you will shatter. And so just, deep breaths, practice yoga, go on a walk, right? There's a lot of benefits to, being outdoors and how it affects your mental health. Go outdoors, garden. That's kind of my thing, because it's free and it can be fast, and it just something about like touching the soil. And so there's all kinds of very simple things just to take a moment and reflect.
Yeah, I always say too, it's like if you're feeling anxious or stuck, like go shower, go snuggle the pets, like do something, dance around, shake it out. Because again, it, like you said, it really is, sometimes we carry so much. And then one of my favorite quotes says that soft things don't shatter. But when we walk around, we're so hard and we're holding it all. I mean, you break easy that way. So that's so beautiful, Maria.
So gardening. So what kind of, what are you growing in your garden? Or are you just doing it for fun? I'm curious.
Yeah, I don't grow anything.
Okay.
I more try and like manage these crazy, I don't know if they're weeds, I don't know if it's grass, I don't know if it's decorative, but it looks nice. So I'm like trying to prune it the best I can, not having any idea what I'm doing, but it feels good, right? You go out there with some loppers or whatever, and you just kind of, and then I can go back in and I'm like sweaty. And, we talked about like sweating and working out, and that's like kind of cleansing, and I'm ready to go. Just give me a little break.
All right. I was going to say, if you're growing tomatoes or anything, that could maybe share with Mel and I, on for our next talk or anything like that. But now this is, I tell you what, Mel, this has been fantastic. I know I didn't want us to continue the conversation without Maria. I know she really opened the door for us to be here, for me anyway, opened the door to be here with you. And it's important, I think, that the audience gets a chance to just hear your story, talk about really the genesis of Operation Within, and just your experience as a military spouse, a mom. You're out there, you're grinding every day, and again, I don't know how both of you do it. I don't think you sleep. I think both of you just go like 100 miles an hour. But it's really cool just to see the other side. Again, I can only understand and share my as a military member kind of what I experienced. But again, listening to, the spouse and that support that's there. Again, there's I tell my wife, when, even when we argue about little things, right? I was like, no matter what, at the end of the day, that there isn't an award. That's like spouse of the universe or something, because there's something to be said about military spouses, that they deal with so much that it's just, folks just don't know. You don't know how much you carry, how much you hold, just to take care of the military member. And again, that could be the husband or the wife, depending on who the military member is. But those spouses are amazing. So anytime it's like the month of the military spouse or the week, it's like, yes, give them like the entire year, because they deserve all the credit. But I really appreciate you joining us on this conversation. So as we wrap up, Mel, so where do we go from here? So we've got Maria, right? So where do we go from here? What does the audience, what can we take away from this conversation?
Well, one thing is that this is such a community effort, that there are so many things and people behind the scenes that are making this stuff happen. So just acknowledging that and having immense gratitude, because, it really does take a village to support one another, and there's a village waiting for you. And, this is not a one-man team. This is a multi-layered project that has a big mission to serve. So, yeah, Marty said it beautifully. I couldn't be more honored to be part of this. Going from here, maybe that's a Maria question. I don't know. It's like, what's next?
Well, I mean, the initial reviews have been great. So first off, thanks to you guys, right? I mean, you're doing the work, you're here, you're volunteering your time, you're volunteering your stories. They really are raw. They really are reflective. And initially, some of the feedback that I've heard personally is just great reviews on the on what's been released so far. And I just think it's more to come. And again, if we just continue to share and continue to raise awareness about these resources, and especially the podcast where so much is shared, then I think that, there's no reason why this couldn't be scaled to other parts of the country. And if you are listening, don't think that this is a San Antonio specific thing, because resources exist in your area as well. Team RWB is a national organization. Some of our other partners who will be participating in the podcast later are also national organizations. So if you don't have the Team RWB app, I encourage you to get it, because it's amazing. I have it myself. I'm just a civilian supporter, but I love it. And my husband and I and our family and kids, there's something for everyone. And so that is just an easy way to get involved, to know your city, to get acclimated, and to connect with people just like you.
You bet. And you're right. This is just kind of the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much more out there. There are a ton of resources. So yeah, so if again, for our listeners out there, again, just get plugged into your community. Like Mel said, find something you're passionate about. Go out there, volunteer, download the Team RWB app. And again, even if you don't download the app, there are other VSOs or other ways that you can give back to your community. And again, and keep the conversation going, right? That's all we're trying to do is open up this conversation and really just get down to, hey, we're here for you. We want to help. You're not alone. We are all carrying a burden, or we are all dealing or have dealt with something, something difficult in our lives. And again, just remember, you're not alone, right? Again, that's the whole goal of Operation Within. So we appreciate you guys joining us on another conversation. We will see you all in the next time we come together. Mel, it's been a pleasure. Maria,
Always.
It's been fantastic.
Thanks, guys.
And thank you all. Remember, keep it simple. Don't forget to eat. Don't forget to smile. Talk to y'all soon.